everybody, Tina Marie from Mojave Model Railroad, and tonight we're doing something a little different. We're talking aliens, just like this little guy over here. Okay, well, we're not really talking aliens, but we are going to talk UFOs. And if you missed my layout update number 2, you can check the link right up here and you'll understand why we're talking UFOs. Because part of my train layout, yes, I am incorporating a tribute to Rachel, Nevada, out by Area 51 and a little sci-fi. And part of that is a UFO. So as we're doing stuff from the workbench, and this is kind of a new feature to my channel I'm going to be adding periodically, is what's on my workbench. And I want to know what's on your workbench as well, so you can leave a comment below about what's on your workbench. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about what's on my workbench in episode number 1, and this is the UFO from hell. I have gotten so many gray hairs off this project. What started off as a simple idea, simple concept, has ballooned into something out of this world. It has gone absolutely crazy. To try to condense all these wires and these LEDs into a very confined space has been a challenge. And as we go back up from a month ago and you watch what I've done with this build from a month ago to now, you'll understand why I'm getting gray hair. Now, I am waiting on a couple circuit boards to come in that I'm going to be able to change up a little bit. And just like with any build, sometimes things come up and you have to kind of go on the fly and change things. Well, that's just kind of what I've had to do. So some of the part of the video, I will let you know what parts are changing. And the reason why they're changing is because they're not going to work to what I need. But in the meantime, I want you to watch this video. I want you to see the progress so far on this little UFO with all the wires sticking out. Yeah, look at all the wires. There are, oh, look at, yeah, there's a lot of wires in there and there's only more to come. Anyways, I want you to sit back, enjoy, grab a cup of tea, grab a glass of wine, sit down next to your favorite alien and watch UFO from Hell episode number 1. I'm Tina Marie Cowett. This is Mojave Model Railroad, and let's get to the workbench right now. This project is a scale 1/87th UFO, and I have strong ambitions of including well over 50 LEDs on this tiny project, so let's get started. This is a Busch UFO kit. It can be hard to come by, but I did pick it up on Amazon for about $65. It does come with its own set of LED lights that do flash with a circuit board that requires between 14 to 16 volts. Plus it does come with 5 live alien figures and some signs, which is pretty cool. Instead of their board, I chose to kind of go in a different direction, and I'll explain in a minute. One of the 2 boards I'm planning on using is this water flow light LED kit. It does basically a chaser circuit. Now you can get this like I got unassembled, or you can get it pre-assembled with the LED lights already on the board. Now as I'm adding my own LEDs, I chose not to go that route, although in theory you could just unsolder the lights from their board and install wires of your own on the pre-assembled ones. Now if you aren't that great at soldering, that might be a better option. I have the links to both in the description. I will say this kit's easy to assemble, but the resistors and parts are very small to work with on this board. The board is only 53 millimeters by 19 millimeters and can accept between 2.5 volts and 14.5 volts, but because of the size, I would try to keep the volts around 5, otherwise it tends to run on the hot side. Again, this is a very small board, and soldering to a board this small has its challenges. I personally like to use low temp solder pigs. The link is in the description, along with a hot air gun set at around 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It tends to melt right around 281 degrees, and you don't want the temp set too high as it can damage the circuit. What is great about using this paste is you put a small amount on the board, install your circuit and the resistors, add a little heat. The heat evaporates the paste and leaves a nice solid solder connector, very clean. Now I use a 3-in-1 workstation. Now this unit has a hot air gun, soldering iron, DC power supply, not just for powering but also for testing. Now I've had this unit for a couple of years and just love it. A link in the description to Amazon is below. It heats up really quick, very easy to handle, allows very precision temp control, and not just on the air gun, but the solder iron as well. Plus comes with a lot of goodies. Now once you get the 2 circuit boards installed, you have to add all the resistors Now these 10 resistors are for the individual LED lights. Plus you have a couple other resistors and a capacitor for the circuit. You also have a pot that allows you to control the speed of the chasing circuit. Now I do wish it allowed for a little bit slower speed, but overall not bad. Now in my layout update number 2, I talk about these distribution boards for my LED streetlights. I love these boards. They come with all kinds of goodies, but I really like his ability to run these through volt mode. So whatever volt you put in comes out. Or just by using their included jumper, you can run them in a 5-volt mode, which is really good as well. Plus you have a pot that does control the brightness. Now due to the space in the UFO, I had to remove the 2 power connectors and just solder the 12-volt impulse directly to the board. Now the idea was to use this board to power the chaser board, as well as run a few of Evan designed LEDs directly from this distribution board. This UFO consists of 5mm slow flashing LEDs, 3mm slow flashing LEDs, a couple Pico 1mm slow flashing LEDs, and a bunch of 1.8mm LEDs that are all 12 volts. I'll put the link to Evan Design's website in the description below. Now what you see on the bottom of the UFO, there are 6 1.8mm red LEDs on the outside, 3 1.8 blue LEDs near the middle of the UFO, and a 3mm slow flashing LED in the center, which is blue. Now the 3mm slow flashing will be tied to the green distribution board, and the other LEDs will be tied to the blue chaser board. After gluing the LEDs in place to prevent bleed through, I cover the LEDs with liquid electrical tape, which worked out great. Now the toughest part of this build I'm still working on is installing these 1.8mm LEDs around the center of the UFO. That will be tied to this chasing circuit. Now there are 24 lights total. Each connection has a block of 3 LEDs, a white, green, and blue, and they're all tied together. Now the idea is this will chase around the outside of the UFO, kind of a Close Encounters of a Third Kind feel. This is where fitting all these wires into the small spaces has become a challenge. Now the top of the UFO has one 3mm orange slow flashing LED. It's isolated in the dome, and then 2 5mm slow flashing LEDs, blue and red, illuminate the kind of plastic fan around the top. Now this creates a cool effect across the top of the UFO, which you're going to see in the upcoming video, but it also creates something I wasn't expecting, which is a purple color, because the 2 different flash at different rates, and I really love this effect. The most difficult part, and one of the reasons why I wish I had a 3D printer, is installing these Pico 1mm slow flashing red LEDs to the tail fins. I tried to cut small grooves to hide the very small wires. It didn't hide them that well, so I'm just going to fill them with a little glue and then re-spray paint the fins, which should hide them completely. The tricky part is going to have to fabricate my own legs for this UFO. Another strong reason for getting a 3D printer in the future. Now the 3 that are supplied are great, but they're not hollow and they're too thin to drill into, and I wanted the wires to go through the legs so you wouldn't see any wires on the layout. So after testing, I found this board can't handle all the LED lights. The power drain makes the unit just very hot. It burns out in minutes. Now the board is fine for single LEDs attached, which I'm going to probably use in one of my signs, but this does not work for this particular install, so I have another board on order. So far, even without the chaser lights installed, the effects of the LED lighting on this UFO is pretty impressive, and I'm excited about getting the remainder of lights installed and on the layout, so take a look. Well, there you go. UFO from Hell, episode number 1 from the workbench. Gonna do a few of these updates throughout the year on the projects I'm working on from the workbench. I want to know what's on your workbench. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you're currently working on. Even better, let me know, should a UFO be on a train layout? It's going to be on my layout. Of course, it's my layout, so I can put what I want. And I wanted to put a tribute to Area 51 as well as a UFO. Now, I can't wait to get the other circuit boards in, because once they come in, I'll be able to wrap up this project. I'll do a video on this once it's all wrapped up and ready to go for the layout. In the meantime, everybody, don't forget to subscribe to my channel below. Click that little bell icon. That way you don't miss any of these updates moving forward on my channel. And again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Mojave Model Railroad. Remember, inspired realism, it starts right here. I'm Tina Marie Cowett, and beam me up, Scotty. I'm out of here. Bye, everybody.